Last week we looked at the discussion, the lecture, the role play, field work, and others, questions and answers, and then others.
Yes.
And then you said that they are known as techniques.
Yes.
Uh-huh. But on the slide, we are seeing that, for instance, if you see a lecture, you will see that a lecture method.
Yes.
So I'm a bit confused, and I have seen some questions which ask some past questions which were like we should explain some 5 factors that lead to the choice, or that may lead to a teacher's social studies teacher's choice of method.
Mm.
So now I want to get a clarification on this technique and method thing, because it's a bit confusing to me.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
How do we explain method? I'm
We
not
explain
asking you
methods.
alone. I'm not asking you alone. But you can go ahead.
Okay. So we explain methods to be the way a teacher presents his or her lesson. That's the general
Yes.
approach
Yes.
that leads a teacher into his delivery, which may be either a teacher centered
Yes.
or learner centered, which means that
Yes.
we have only two methods. For the
Yes.
methods, we have only two.
Yes.
Uh-huh. That was what you said about methods.
Yes. Then what about techniques?
The techniques, I think we explained the techniques to be the activities.
The specific activities.
Yes,
Yes. That you
that
and
is
your
performed.
learners will carry out in the classroom.
Exactly.
Yes. So we said the methods, they have two ends. One as teacher dominated and the other learner dominated. And we gave some example of the techniques that they will be doing, specific activities that they will be doing in the classroom that shows that it's teacher dominated or learner dominated. All the techniques we've mentioned, the discussion, the lecture, the role play, and all, they are all techniques. They are specific activities that a teacher will engage his or her learners in the classroom. So if you want to dominate in the classroom, then you are using a technique that will enable you to dominate in the classroom, where you may talking about lecture or you may talking about demonstration. But they are all techniques. But the method you selected that you, the teacher, will dominate will inform you as to the techniques you adopt in the classroom. So if you want your learners to dominate in the classroom, there are techniques you select to help you achieve that method that you selected. So the various specific activities that a teacher performs in the classroom with his or her learners, they are techniques. And the teacher's overall approach to the teaching is what we call the method. People use method and techniques interchangeably, but they have their own specific roles that they play, and they intertwine, or they are linked up. So the method that you select will enable you to select the techniques in addition, and how we arrange the techniques will constitute the sequence or the strategy of what the lesson that you are handling. Are you okay?
Yes, but your explanation is quite clear. The explanation you are giving is very clear, but I don't know why then when we move on to the slide, we didn't see
Yes, the
discussion
slide,
technique.
if you see most of the method books and whatever, they will see discussion method, lecture
Aha,
method, but they are actually techniques
techniques. Yes, yes.
because they are the various activities, specific activities that you engage with your learners. So if you see method are tied to discussion or whatever, they are referring to techniques.
That was why they were confusing us. If they were to go straight to be lecture method, discussion technique,
It runs through
role
most of
play
these
technique,
submitted books, yes.
then
But
it
they
will
are
not pose
techniques.
that confusion.
Those specific things, role play, brainstorming, and all those, they are techniques. They are not methods. They are the specific activities you and your learners will perform in the classroom. Are you okay?
Hello,
Thank you,
sir.
sir.
So we will continue to look at
Hello.
the yes, sir.
Please, in terms of the method and then the techniques,
Yes.
at times to strategies, they interchangeably use the strategies
Yes.
as a
Yes.
technique or a method.
Yes.
So
Yes.
I just want a distinct difference or any from your end. Tell us exactly this, which one is which is which.
I said method is the teacher's overall approach to teaching. That is why when you give the same topic to two teachers, the approach will differ. The same way when you give a test to two preachers, the way they will preach the test will differ. So when you talk of method, it is the teacher's overall approach to the teaching. How he will handle that teaching from the beginning to the end is what we
Okay.
term as method.
Yeah.
Then the techniques. They are the specific activities that the teacher and the learner will undertake during the teaching and learning process. So if you said in the course of the teaching, you put your learners into group, small group, it's a technique. That small group discussion. It's a technique that specific activities that you and your learners will be doing in the classroom. If you say you are using role play, it's a technique that you and your learners will use in the classroom. And you know, role play, most of the things are done by the learners. So it means you are using learner-centered method in the choice of the techniques role play that you have selected. The arrangement of these techniques is what we call the strategy. Maybe brainstorming first, discussion second, and whatever. The arrangement, one after the other, is what we call the strategy.
Thank you, sir. Well understood.
That is why when your techniques, you don't follow it well, you may not achieve the objective of the lesson. Maybe instead of brainstorming, you are using discussion or you are using another techniques. But maybe a different technique will serve that purpose before maybe the discussion or whatever. That's why when the arrangement is not done well, you may not achieve the objective of that particular lesson. So the techniques are the specific activities you and your learners will undertake in the classroom. And the arrangement of these techniques, which one comes first and which one follows, is what we call the strategy.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, can we continue?
Yes.
So
Hello.
our next technique is debates.
Hello,
And
sir.
yes,
Please, the examples of methods of teaching, then that doesn't mean that these two examples we have to classify as examples of techniques.
which one?
The generic method and the specific method. As the techniques are the activities that you perform in the actual techniques that you perform in the classroom.
Yes.
Does it mean that the examples of methods is not method, but it should be techniques?
Their method, the traditional is referring to the teacher-centered, and the other one is referring to the learner-centered. That's why we have only two types of method, but the rest are techniques. And the arrangement of these techniques in delivering a lesson is what we call strategy. So methods, we have two, teacher-centered and learner-centered, or the traditional and then the whatever you call it. Are you okay? Hello?
Yes, sir. Hello.
Okay, so
According
let's
to
move
our
on. Come again.
the science gave us generic method and then special method.
Yes, and I'm saying
Whereby
the
the-
traditional or the generic is referred to as the teacher-centered, and the other one is the learner-centered. It's the same thing. As they are saying, the topic is strand and whatever is up. It's the same thing.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. So we can continue. So debate as a technique. So debate is a healthy educational contest where two or more speakers present their arguments with the intention of what? Persuading one another. The social studies teacher may use the debate technique when dealing with controversial issue in the classroom. The intention of which is to identify differing views under the topic of discussion. So if the topic doesn't call for discussion, debate, there's no way you use debate as a technique to achieve the objective of that lesson. So the topic must have two divergent views where learners will speak for or against the topic. Basically, there are two types of debate, informal debate and formal debate. The informal is the one in which two sides of a question are discussed and no set plan or organization is followed. Maybe you and your colleague, you are just debating on an issue, you are raising your point, he or she is also raising a point without any plan to follow, whereby at the end they will say you made the first because you raised A, B, C, D, or you made the last because you didn't counter this. And then the formal one, this is the type that has rules and procedure that we follow, where we have the timekeeper, you have the chairman, you have all those people who will help in moderating the debate. The number of debaters on each side is usually limited to 2, and a time limit is set for each of the speakers to speak. So in the former one, there are laid down rules and procedures that we follow because at the end, you declare the winner. So there are laid down rules, but the informal one, it is not done following any rules or procedure. How to use debate technique in your classroom. The teacher gives out a topic based on their learning area and guidelines on how the debate should be done. The teacher explains the topic or discusses it with students as to how they should go about it. Then you now divide the students into 2 groups. Then they will now select who will speak for and who will speak against. In both formal and informal debating, the teacher should encourage good sportsmanship and careful preparation and clear presentation. It's a form of what? A way of learning. So it's not about fighting one another. You are arguing your point. That's why we say it's a healthy competition. You want to outweigh your opponent based on the points you raise so far as the debate topic is concerned. So it's not a fight between the two opposing sides. That's why they must exhibit a good sportsmanship in their argument. When they, at the end, they say this person or this group emerges first, it doesn't call for any fight or quarrel. You select someone as a judge who is well acquainted to or with debating and who can, based on his or her decision, on a thorough, unbiased, and critical analysis of the debates based on what each of the debaters will present. If 2 or more judges are used, they should be given ballots on which instructions for their voting and basis for judging are cited. So you may choose 2, 3 at the end. They put their scores together and strike average. You can select one person depending on the nature of the debate. So in the formal debating, there are rules and regulations that we follow. You follow the principles of good speaking. Speak loudly for everyone to hear, clearly enough for all to understand. Speak correctly so that your words reflect precisely what you have in mind. Deliver your speech spontaneously or unconsciously. In other words, follow your notes or your outline and not memorizing what you are going to say, because you'll not be reading from the papers word to word. Listen to your opponents, because you'll be refuting his point or her point. Your refutation will depend much upon what your opponent has said. So if your opponent is talking and you don't listen to him or her, there's no way you can banter his or her point that they raise. Be courteous and tactful. By arguing courteously and tactfully, you will contribute to what the true spirit of debate in the social studies class means. Abide by all the rules and regulations. You are speaking for 5 minutes, so if you hear the bell, whatever information you have, just end it there, and when the opportunity is given to your other person, he or she will continue. Formal debate requires adhering to the rules of the game. So in the formal debates, we follow all these rules and end successfully. What will be some of the advantages when you use debate as a technique? Yes, let me hear from you. If you use debate in teaching your learners, what will be some of the advantages?
Yeah, it increases your critical thinking skills.
You
and
or
also
the learners?
your listening skills.
Are you talking about the teacher or the learners?
The learner.
Okay. Yes.
The learner. The learner who
Yes.
is debating. Yes.
Any other?
It increases his or her critical. Okay.
Any other?
Yes.
Yes.
It develops in learners their communicative skills.
Yes. Especially those who will speak.
Yes, yes.
So when you are explaining, make sure you emphasize that aspect, because it's not everybody that will benefit from and acquiring these communicative skills. Those who are speaking,
The speakers, the
are
principal
okay?
speakers and the supporting
Yes,
speakers.
the supporting speakers. They are the people you are referring to. Are you okay?
Yes, sir.
So always make sure you add the flesh to the points. Yes, any other?
Yeah, sir, please, it enhances the learner's confidence in communication.
Yes, they develop confidence because they are going to stand or sit before audience. So as they are continuing debating, they are gathering their confidence level, whatever, that will enable them to speak to a large group of people. Okay, so it helps the student to develop critical thinking skills, the habit of teamwork. Teamwork, when they are putting their thoughts together, the group will contribute. So everybody will bring his or her idea. So it contributes to teamwork, and especially when the speakers are on the floor, they collaborate to make sure that they win. It teaches students to be logical rather than emotional. We talk about sportsmanship. It promotes the awareness of the point of view of others. Make sure that you also listen to others. You are not the only person who knows. So listen to others and make sure that you also learn from them. It teaches students to accept defeat gracefully. If you are not declared as the winner, just accept it and you move on. It's a way of learning. Disadvantages: it can develop into quarrel among members if they don't exhibit sportsmanship. It consumes a lot of time Hence, teachers find it difficult to use in the teaching and learning process. It does not encourage full participation of students because it's not all of them who will be on stage to speak. So when the actual time for the debating is only limited to the few speakers, it brings about boredom on the part of those who are not speaking, the audience. It may also not be appropriate for people at the lower level where they can't speak fluently and advance their points. So these are some of the advantages and disadvantages of debate as a technique. Brainstorming.
Sir.
Yes.
So when we got to the debate as a technique, it was boldly written there. So our minds are now clear that debate
that's
is a
why I told
technique.
you from earlier that they are all techniques, but no, we interchange them as
Okay.
so they are all techniques.
All right. But
So you can't
when
say
to use
brainstorming is you come again.
when to use the debate technique was not added to the slide.
It's not everything that you get in the slide.
So if
So
we can discuss it
even
before we
even during the explanation of debates, we said the topic should be debatable, having two sides. So if the topic is not having two sides, how do you use debate? Are you
that's
okay?
yes.
So yes, you know when to use debate because you know that the topic is controversial. It's having two sides. So the best techniques to use to involve your learners is what? The use of debates. But if the topic doesn't call for divergent view or a controversial issue, you can use debate to achieve the purpose.
That's it.
So some of them, you will not tell you everything. So that's how we learn. So just from the definition, you can deduce when to use debate. All right. Most of the
Okay.
things we don't talk about when to use it. We expect you to, reason and add to it. Okay. The concept brainstorming. Brainstorming is a problem-solving technique in which members of a group suggest solutions to problems without interruption or discussion by other members of the group. So when you are using brainstorming in the classroom, whatever your learners will say, you put them on the board without commenting on the response, whether they are correct or not. Then when they exhaust their views and whatever, then you now help them to cross out the relevant information and you summarize the relevant ones that relate to the topic for your learners as your core point or the explanation or the definition of the concept. So in brainstorming, whatever response the learners will give, you write it down without comment on the response. And when they exhaust their views and their points, then you now go, yes, who said this? Yes, why did you say it? You argue, debate, discuss whether it's relevant to the topic. If not relevant, politely, you cross it out. Then the ones that are relevant to the topic, you now give it to them as the definition or explanation. Down sees brainstorming as exciting group participation activity designed to develop multiple answers to a single question because everybody will contribute, will say something. And once everybody is saying something, the teacher is writing, everybody will say something during that period. And when it comes to the correction, that's where you now be advising them, this is not related to the topic and blah, blah, blah. Alternative solutions to a problem and create responses. So when you are talking about brainstorming, it's a exciting group participation activity designed to develop multiple answers to a single question. Brainstorming can also be described as the act of defining a problem or idea and coming out with anything related to the topic, no matter how the responses may be. One is this related to the topic, you accept them, and then at the end, you take out the bad ones. It is a technique by which a group attempts to find a solution to a specific problem by amassing all the ideas spontaneously by its members. So that is brainstorming as a technique. On the spot, they come out with the solution to the question you ask, whether they are relevant or not. You don't comment until they exhaust their points. Then you now help them to get the correct ones from among the alternative solutions they suggested. How to use brainstorming? Divide the class into groups. If you want the group to come out with their responses group by group, or can be as the whole class. Put them into separate sections of the classroom. Make sure someone in the group has paper and pencil or whatever to write down the ideas from that particular group. Explain briefly to the class the guidelines for brainstorming, indicating the time limit. You are using only 5 minutes because it's a technique that you are using. Maybe out of the 3 objectives, that is one of the techniques. So you don't use much time on the brainstorming as a technique, else you can achieve the rest of the objective. So there's a time limit for them to submit if you are putting them into groups. If you are not putting them into groups and you are asking the question, calling for responses, then you make sure that you are working within time. So you don't use all the time for the brainstorming. Ask each group to evaluate their results as a group. And if possible, let them come up with the best options from the discussion the group have. Share the result of each group with the class. Evaluate the process of brainstorming in terms of efficiency, strengths, weaknesses, and how to improve its use in the classroom. So that is how we can use brainstorming. Either the whole class, you brainstorm them, or you put them into small group, give them some limited time to come out with the responses, and you are easy to go. Advantages of brainstorming. It is highly motivating. Motivating in the sense that once A said something and you put it down, B said something and you put it down, oh, C will also say something. So it is highly motivating techniques that enable learners to come out with whatever idea they have on the topic. The technique promotes spontaneity and creativity because it's on the spot. They are thinking and responding to the question. Students are able to come out with quicker solutions to problems on the spur of a moment. It generates enthusiasm and eagerness to participate due to its open invitation and its rapid free flow of information, because everybody is saying something, the teacher is writing down, yes, you are writing down. So it's making sure that everybody participates in the brainstorming session. It provides a permanent record and helps in developing solutions to problems. These are some of the advantages. Disadvantages, students may digress. Yes, sir.
Can you throw light on the last point? It provides a permanent record and helps in developing solutions to problems. The first part,
so
it provides a permanent record.
From the various solutions that your learners will come out with, the ones that are correct, you give it to them as the core point where they will maybe write in their jotter or their notebook or whatever. So it becomes a permanent record that they will refer to as their reference to that particular topic that you use brainstorming to solicit ideas from them. Are you okay?
I don't quite get it, but...
Oh, if you use brainstorming as a technique and your learners are coming out with their views and whatever, I said that every response that your learners will give, you don't comment, you put it down. And at the end, you help them to get the ones that are related to the topic. And once you summarize that one which is related to the topic, that's the one that they'll put in their jotter or their notebook or as the core point for that particular explanation of that topic or that concept. So it becomes a permanent record for them. Once they recorded it or they wrote it in their exercise book and notebook or jota or whatever, they can reference and read over and over, which is a record for them. Among the alternative solutions that they came out with, there's a particular one that are accurate to the topic.
So
Are
that
you okay?
means the alternative that the students are bringing out, it's what they are writing in their notes.
No, the alternative solutions that they are bringing out, you, the teacher, you are writing it on the board.
Yes,
And
you the
after they
teacher.
finish exhausting their points, you now help them to take the bad ones from the good ones. And the good ones are the ones that they are recording in their exercise notebook or jota or whatever, which becomes a permanent record for them to be reading. Even after school, they will send it home and it becomes a note for them. That's what we are saying.
Yeah, okay. All right.
Are you okay?
Yes, yes.
Yes, because from the alternative solutions, it's not everything that they will record as a permanent whatever when they finish coming out with their point. But the ones that you put down as the definition or the explanation or whatever, that becomes a permanent record that they will write in their notebook as a note or as a reference, whatever that they can refer to.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, disadvantages. Students may digress from the topic under discussion if the teacher or the leader or the student have limited knowledge on the topic. They may be saying different things that will not solve the problem because they may not have knowledge about the topic. It encourages only the extroverts in the classroom to participate in the discussion, to the neglect of these extroverts. So when you are using brainstorming, at times, even though its permissive nature allows everybody to talk, you will see that those who are the extroverts will dominate the class. Even at times, the extrovert will not say anything, even though everybody is saying something. If the number of
The
students
introverts. The introverts.
come again.
The introverts.
Yeah, yes.
Ah.
If the number of students in a group is too large, the leader may find it difficult to control the members. So if you are putting them into groups, make sure that the size is not too large for the leader to control so that they can come out with solutions. It consumes a lot of time due to the formalities one has to go through for effective brainstorming to be well conducted. And we have more that you can add. Then we have two important concepts, concentric and spiral approaches in the design of curriculum, and also so far as the teaching and learning is concerned. When I talk of the concentric approach, it implies two or more circles of different sizes, but with a common center. In some cases, the term concentric is used interchangeably with spiral. The Cambridge International Dictionary of English defines spiral as shapes made of curves, each one above or wider than the one before it. They are continuous curves formed by a point widening about the central axis on an ever-increasing distance and steadily accelerating. The concentric approach is one of the methods of organizing the subject matter in social studies, which basically emphasizes teaching and learning, beginning from point closest to the learner and expanding out to what is distant or remote from the learner. So when we talk of concentric approach, it's where teaching begins from the immediate environment of the learner and extends to the outside world of the learner. That is why it is based on the pedagogical principles of teaching from known to unknown, so far as the concentric approach is concerned. That is why when you are teaching the child and there's an example in the classroom, you cite the example that is closer to him or her in the classroom before you cite example that is far from him or her. So in the concentric approach, teaching and learning is done using the child's immediate environment before the outside environment. So if you are teaching about the concept of leadership, right at the home of the child, the father is the leader. So the child knows what the father provides for them in the house. So if you extend the environment from the home to the community, maybe the chief becomes the leader. And you know what the chief does so far as the entire community is concerned. So if you move it to the school, the head becomes the leader and all. If you move it to the district chief executive becomes the. So as you are expanding it, the child understands what leadership is. But if you start leadership in the country, you are mentioning the president and what. It is far from the learner. But right from home, there's leadership role going on there. So you cite that example. So when you are talking about leadership in the remote environment, based on the idea of the home leadership, the child will understand the leadership outside the home. So we always use the child's environment to start with before we move outside the child's environment. That's the learner's immediate environment, that's the home, gradually extend into the neighborhood, the village, the town, the district, the region, the country, the subcontinent, the continent, and finally to the wider world. So if you are talking about the leadership of the world, you and the General Secretary, because of the knowledge the child has in the home, the father play a leadership role, even though that role will be very limited to only that small nuclear family. But the child understands that when we talk of a leader in the world, he has so many roles to play because it's about all the countries and whatever. So we don't start the examples from the outside world before you bring it closer to the child. No, we always start from the child point of view or the environment before you now extend it to the outside environment. So that is the spiral approach. And it's based on teaching from known to unknown. Then the spiral approach stresses the educational maxim of teaching from, this one is from simple to complex. Because in the spiral approach, we said this diagram start from a point and be winding around, and then the size will also be increasing. So in the spiral approach, we always use the simple to complex in describing the spiral approach, and we use known to unknown to describe the concentric approach because we are starting from the child's immediate environment. So if you are teaching, let's say, addition in primary 1 as the base of addition, the child moving from class 1 to class 2, even though you still teach him or her addition, but the addition that you taught him class 1 will be different from addition in class 2 because he has grown by 1 year, he has climbed one ladder. So the scope and difficulty level will increase as the child also matured in brain and climbed the academic ladder. So as you are moving from class 1, class 2, class 3, even though you are teaching the same concept, addition, but the scope and difficulty level also increases as the child also matured in brain and also climbing the ladder. So we use simple to complex to explain the spiral approach because the addition I mentioned about, you are starting from the simple at 1 + 1, 2 + 2. Then as he is growing, moving from one level to another, then you now be using the vertical 1, 2 + 3, 4. Then they'll be drawing the line to do the addition. So the scope and difficulty level will increase as the child also matures in brain and climbing the academic ladder. So that is the difference between concentric and the spiral approach. And they all start from the base. They all start from the base. If it is the child's environment, you are starting from the child's immediate environment, the home, which is the base before you expand to the community, to the other environment. And if you are talking about the spiral, you are starting from the simplest information before you are now moving to difficult or complex information. So these are the two important concepts we need to know so far as method of teaching is concerned. The spiral approach stresses, I mentioned this. The
Yeah, sir.
content is, yes,
So then maybe the slides need to be corrected, because the spiral approach, the one you showed, you see
yes,
that
yes,
you see
yes,
from
yes,
the known to
yes,
unknown on the slides.
yes.
And actually, I've
Wait,
spotted an objective question like that, which says
yes,
which of the approaches start from the known to the unknown. And then in
yes.
the distractors, both spiral and concentric were there.
Yes, so they will bring it. So if you don't know, you choose the maybe simple to complex. But the
So when I
actual,
was when I was solving that question and I saw the this thing, I went for spiral because I can see known to unknown under the spiral,
all
which
right,
was
yes,
not on the concentric.
yes. So, we always use this known to unknown, simple to complex, concrete to abstract. We use them, but actually known to unknown should be related to concentric approach as a known environment to the learner before the unknown environment. Even when you are preparing your learner plan, you formulate the RPK with the learner, you think the learner know before you build on what he or she doesn't know. So these are some of the techniques. It is there to confuse you, but you say you do. So it is there to confuse you. So make sure you understand the concept and then you know what applies to which one. Are you okay? So the content in social studies at each successive stage gradually increases in difficulty as learners mature in age and climb the educational ladder, as I explained. The spiral approach to teaching social studies means that the subject complexity grows, as does the capacity and capability of the child as well. Similarly, a child's mastery of complex skills depends upon the acquisition of some elementary ones. So once you start from the base, you are building as the child also matured in brain and climb the ladder. You also increase the scope, the difficulty level will increase. So if you are giving him some few information as he is moving, you are increasing the information because his mental ability is mature to assimilate more information from the previous ones that you started with. So this is a diagram for the concentric approach. We said start from the home, the small environment of the child. Then as you move on, the environment will be what? Expanding, giving different examples which is far from the child's home. But based on the home knowledge that the child acquired, if you are giving examples that are far from him or her, he will still understand. The spiral approach, that this diagram is good, but I prefer the one that looks like a coil. That explains the spiral approach properly for you to understand. That is why if there is a gap, you don't complete the syllabus before the child moves from one class to another. There's a gap that the child is left to fill because you couldn't complete the syllabus. So it's like a coil. When it bends to that level, it can't continue again because there's no continuity to follow. That's why even in the spiral approach, when you are you meet a bad teacher in maybe class 3 and you couldn't understand certain things, when you get to class 4, because the concept will still be repeated, and when you get to class 4, you get a good teacher, you'll be able to understand the gaps that you left in primary 3 when the bad teacher was teaching you. So we use these two concepts very well so far as teaching social studies and organizing social studies content is concerned. It is essential to add that in spiraling, the student continually build upon what they have already learned in order to grasp the new knowledge in the spiral approach, learners are made to revisit the concept already learned so that those concepts are not completely ignored. They build on it as they move along. Benefits associated with both concentric and the spiral approaches. The concentric approach arouses the interest of the learners, and their active participation in the lesson will be enhanced because they start from the child's immediate environment and outer view. The teacher is in a better position to gather teaching and learning resources from the environment as he uses the resources in the known environment of the learners. So getting materials to help you deliver a particular lesson will not be a problem. The approach recognizes the pedagogical needs of the learners. Yes, you have to take their needs into consideration before you know where to move them from to. It takes into consideration the mental growth of the student, especially the spiral one, as you are building from one level to another, the scope and the difficulty level increases. So it goes with their mental growth of the student. So if you give them too much, where their mental growth is not at that, up to that level, you disturb them. If you give them too low, you disturb them. So you have to move according to their abilities so far as their mental ability is concerned. In this regard, materials that are best suited for the child at any stage will be selected and used in the teaching and learning process. This approach enhances the mental development of the learners as their scope becomes wider and varied at different levels. The student will have a better orientation of learning of issues in social
Sir.
studies through, yes, madam.
Hello, sir.
Yes,
Please, I want to ask a question.
ask.
So, it is not good, based on this, it is not good for a parent to skip or teacher skipping children their class.
It depends. It depends. But actually, they must follow the ladder to the end. But if
Sometimes
you
you see
realize,
that,
yes,
sometimes that the teachers will say, oh, this child, he is good, or he or she is good. He has to be promoted to the next class, which the child has not been. Maybe he's in class 3 and he's supposed to go to class 4, and he will
yes,
skip class 4 and go to class 5.
yes, it's happening.
I
That's
think
why I say
based
it
on
depends.
uh,
That's why I say it depends. We
okay.
will come to how to handle these children in our next lesson. So when we get there to know.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So these are some of the benefits for both spiral and concentric approaches. Problems associated with the use of concentric and spiral. The approach leads to over-repetition of same facts, and this can be tedious to both the teacher and the learner. Class 1 addition, class 2 addition, GSS 1 environment, GSS 2 environment. So there's constant repetition of some of these concepts. So at times when you move to the, when you mention that, we have done it, but they are going to build on what they did previously. There is the anxiety that a wide spectrum of subject matter will have to be taught to be sure of a better understanding before they move to the next level. Every bit of information about a topic needs to be exhausted before moving to the next stage. This may not be possible because of the time limitation. And most of the syllabus, we can't complete them before they move to the next level. That's why that gap will be created, and maybe we'll be able to fill it in the next level. The strict implementation of the concentric and spiral approaches appears not to be practical, because even though we are saying it, putting them into practice is always difficult. The wide range of the syllabus at any given educational level may appear not to be covered before the learner moves on. So these are some of the difficulties that we encounter when we use these two concepts or approaches. And they come with so many factors. You may be sick, something may happen, the rain, you are in the rainy season, you may not go to schools. So it's a whole lot. There's sports, there's culture, there's this. Factors that influence the choice of teaching method. The objective of the lesson should be 1, the size of the class should be 2, the nature of the student should be 3, the nature of the subject matter you are communicating to the learners, the teacher competence, time constraint, variety. They are all things to consider before you select a particular method of teaching. Somebody asked this question. So if you are time constraint, you can't be going to brainstorming and all those things. You move straight to lecture and you make sure you beat time. So the methods will inform you as to the techniques that you select to handle your lesson. So this is the end of units 4, 5, 6. If no question, you will continue to look at unit 7, 8, and if possible 9. And next week we'll look at the lesson plan, and that will be the end. Any question? Any question?
Oh, sir.
Okay.
Hello, sir.
Yes, sir.
Sir, so from your explanation, can you say that both the spiral and then the concentric, they are the same?
They are not the same, but they relate.
They relate,
That's why when
yes.
you look at the differences, they are not the same. And when you look at similarities, they all start from the base. They have some similarities and they have some differences. So even their pictorial form, as this one is a complete circle, the other one looks like a coil.
Okay.
So they are not the same, but they are two concepts that you can't separate them. Are you okay?
Okay, sir.
Yeah.
Okay, sir.
Let's look at teaching and learning resources. Resources include any media or material that help teaching and learning. Teaching resources are material prepared and used by the teacher in teaching his or her lesson. Learning resources are materials prepared by the learners to facilitate learning. That's why I say teaching and learning resources. So the teacher, you are using it to facilitate your teaching, and the learners are using it to facilitate their learning. Some, the two of you can come together and prepare. Some you prepare it alone, some they prepare it alone. So depending on what material you are using at what point in time. So it is teaching and learning resources or material. And it helps the teacher to communicate his ideas to the learners. It helps the learners to interpret their own understanding based on the resources they are using. So it helps them in their learning and help the teacher in his or her teaching. Teaching and learning resources are materials that are used to facilitate teaching and learning and enhance learning. Example, the visual is an instructional device that can be seen but not heard. And we have so many examples of the visual, the mandala card drawing, the chalkboard drawing, the still pictures and whatever. Then the audio visual resources is an instructional device that can be heard. So the recording, the radio and all those that we hear without seeing the person making that noise, they are all audio resources. Then the combination of the two, audiovisual resources, they are the devices which we can hear and we can see at the same time. So when they are giving the 7 o'clock news on the GTV or whatever, You see the person giving the news and you hear the person as well. So these are some of the resources that we can use to help in our teaching and our learning. Types of teaching and learning resources. Visual resources, we mentioned them. They are any teaching and learning devices which appeal to the sense of sight. For example, the chalkboard. The chalkboard per se is not a teaching and learning resource, but the illustrations that you put on it, the drawings, the whatever that you put on it becomes the resource. A bulletin board, pictures, photos, board diagrams, charts, flashcards, and whatever, they are all examples of the visuals. Audio resources, they solely appeal to the sense of hearing, e.g. tape recorder, radio, and other recordings, gramophone recorder, and all those things are visuals. Then audiovisual resources appeal to both the sense of hearing and the sense of sight. The television set, the video set, the tape, film, and all those that we can use to see and hear at the same time. Resource person as another technique that is under teaching and learning resources. Who is a resource person? Yes. Let me hear from you. Hello.
Yes, sir.
Who is a resource person?
A resource person may be said to be someone who is invited to assist the regular classroom teacher into delivering a concept which the teacher might not be very well versed in.
Okay, you have done well. When we talk of a resource person, it's any human being who is knowledgeable or well versed in an area, who is invited, add that phrase, who is invited by the teacher to handle a particular concept of the lesson. If you are not invited, you are not a resource person. That's why it is what? Resource person. So every human being is a resource person. But if you are not invited, you are not. So it's anybody who is well versed or knowledgeable in an area who is invited by the teacher to come and handle a particular topic or concept with his or her learners. So examples, farmers, bankers, queen mothers, sanitation inspectors, the madman, the witches, the wizard, the prostitute, the HIV patient, the nurse, the doctor, the MP, the chief, every human being is a resource person. But if you are not invited, you are not. Reasons for inviting the resource person. You invite the resource person to assist you, the teacher, to teach a particular topic that you don't have enough information about. You invite the resource person to break the boredom, always that ugly face, bring in new face for learners to be happy. So to break the boredom in which the same old face of the class teacher is seen always. So you bring in somebody to at least bring some new life in the student. We also bring in resource person to cement the relationship that exists between the school and the community. We also bring in resource person for the person to serve as a first-hand information or to give first-hand information to the learners when they cannot get such information in the books. We bring in resource person to serve as a role model for the learners so that they can emulate that person's lifestyle. We also bring in resource person to bring variety in the teaching and learning process. Then to provide students with a vivid and realistic contact with life outside the school that could not be achieved entirely when you, the class teacher, is handling. So these are some of the reasons why we invite resource person. At times you know the topic, but based on some of these reasons, you still need to invite the resource person. And even your next class teacher, you can invite him. And you know, teacher, student, when you are not teaching them, you are not their teacher. So once a while you enter based on the invitation, then they know that you are also a teacher, that you can teach them and whatever. So your next class door teacher can serve as a resource person to help you. Things to consider when inviting a resource person. You can't just get up and invite the resource person. You have to let your head be aware that next week, Monday, this person will come at this time to teach this topic, so that when he or she sees him or her, he will not question him or question her, because you have informed him. And there's a reason for informing your head, because at times the information that the resource person is coming to give will help the entire school. So the head will say that, oh, if so, then let him or her talk to the entire school or teach the entire school. So you need to inform your head. So when your head said, oh, you should teach the entire school, then the item 13, your head will provide. It is not you who will provide the item 13 for the resource person. Topics must be given ahead to the resource person to go through and put his or her thoughts together. You have to let the resource person know the scope, the limit which he or she will be talking about. Inform the student that this day, this person is coming to handle a particular concept or this topic for us. That day when the child is sick, he will by all means come, because you want to come and listen, you want to come and see that person. So we inform the learners about the coming of the resource person. The teacher must make research on the topic to be sure that the information that the resource person is giving is accurate, because at the end, you assess your learners. So make sure that you also read around the topic to be sure that the information that the resource person is giving is accurate, because you will not go back to teach the lesson or the topic. And at the end of the resource person presentation, you are going to assess your learners. Teacher must be in the classroom. When you invite a resource person, it's not a holiday for you, the teacher. You have to be in the classroom. You also learn something from the resource person. You have to help in controlling the class. You may be providing certain things to the resource person. So it's not a holiday for you. As I said, you assess them. So you must know exactly what information the resource person give, and you can base on that to assess your learners. Community or environment as a resource. The community plays a vital role so far as the teaching and learning process is concerned. The community provides concrete and tangible resources which are dynamic, interesting, and meaningful to help in the teaching and learning process. And they have some important places in the community where we can get resource persons from, or we can send learners to, for them to have first-hand information. And they put these community resources under these various interest places. So place of civic interest. When I talk of place of civic interest, they are part of the community resource. So we are talking about the district assemblies, we are talking about the metropolitan assemblies, regional offices, the House of Chiefs, Electoral Commission, and all those offices. They are part of places of civic interest. So if you are teaching and the learners have to go to field trip to that place, you know where exactly you are sending them. If you are bringing a resource person from this civic place of civic interest, you know where exactly you are bringing that resource person from. We have place of cultural interest. They include theaters, castles, offices of various clubs, radios, studios, zoo, art galleries, and what have you. The Chiefs Palace and all those, they are all places of cultural interest. They have place of economic interest where exchange of goods and services take place, the money take place. So place of economic interest, we are talking about the experimental farms, we are talking about the banks, the commercial banks, we are talking about the markets, we are talking about the factories, we are talking about where economic activities takes place. So you know exactly where you are sending your learners to when you are organizing educational excursion or you are inviting a resource person from that place of interest. We have place of geographical interest, which includes the dams, the lakes, the rivers, the waterfalls, the mountains, and whatever that nature has provided, and you want your learners to have first-hand information, you have to know where you are sending them to get such information. Place of historical interest, we are talking about the caves, the churches, the excavations, the fort, the castle, the Larabanga mosques, and all those. They are all places of historical interest, the castles and all those places. At times, the examples of cultural interest and the historical interest, they are almost the same. So when you are citing such examples, you know exactly that they are almost the same. Place of scientific interest, we are talking about the broadcasting station, the hydroelectric power generation plant at Kosomo. We are talking about the hospitals. You are talking about Mampong plant into medicine. You are talking about the atomic energy and all those areas that we have scientific activities there. Then we are talking about government buildings. We are talking about the important government buildings, the fire station, the law court, the police station, and all those buildings that we have. So we put them under places of interest, and they have each of these examples under them, and they are all part of the community resource because they are found in the community. So you know where to send your learners to, or you know where to bring in the resource person from to handle a particular lesson for you. Multimedia instructional resources. There is the integration of the technology into the teaching and learning processes has the potential to improve instruction. It creates a technology-based student-centered learning environment that allows students to take charge of their own learning because they will search, they will Google, they will use this tool to find information for themselves. So it becomes the onus of the seeking for the information, but not you, the teacher, always giving the information to them. One significant change in the development of multimedia instructional activity is very, very important because learners will have access to a lot of information that they will learn on their own, and it will help them as students searching for information. Multimedia is defined as the combination of many different types of media communication, including text, graphics, audio, visual, musical, whatever that we use in our teaching and learning process. Multimedia instructional resources require students to take an active role in the learning experience, which can increase the communication between students and the faculty that they belong to. What are some of the importance of these multimedia instructional resources? Information technology has developed to the point where multimedia instructional technology can present some instructional course materials so well that instructors no longer need to do those things. The multimedia will help you to get clarity about some of this information and these diagrams and what have you. The use of technology shifts the presentation of instructional material from the instructor to the available technology through the use of these multimedia instructional technologies. This moves the focus of class activity from the instructor and the presentation of course materials to the student through the use of this student-centered activity to search for information for himself or herself. Students use interactive learning-centered problem-solving activity that incorporate the use of course materials to support their individual learning. So even though they may have the hard copies of whatever, they use some of these multimedia resources to support the information that the teacher gave them. Technology-based materials offer students ongoing practice opportunities that provide immediate high-quality detailed feedback for them. High quality, timely, and frequent feedback can help improve student work as well as their learning. So when we use this multimedia instructional technology, we have some of these things done easily for us and our students. Types of multimedia. 4 main types of multimedia have been identified: static text, image-based, video-based, and then animated interactive multimedia. Challenges of using multimedia in teaching and learning process. Some are obsolete in the use of these technologies. Software compatibility is an issue that at times we find it difficult to use. Software requirement, including operating system, interface software, and all this, at times you may find it difficult to use them. Lack of support and training and assistance that will enable us to be familiar with some of these things. An already heavy workload of the teachers will also be compounded because you have to seek for enough information, because it's open to the students. If you don't go further, they may be asking certain questions that you may not be able to respond to them, even though it's not necessary to respond to all questions that they ask you. You ask them to look for the information for some of them. Lack of training and familiarity with the technology, limitations of the technology, and difficulty in developing or obtaining high quality materials so far as the use of the technology is concerned. Approaches in using the resources. We have 2 approaches in using these community resources. Either you bring the resource to the classroom where you bring in the resource person, or you take the class to the resource where you move them to the field as field trip to go and have first-hand information about the phenomena in the community. So these are the 2 ways of using the community resources. Either you bring the resource to the school or you move the school to the resource. Importance of using some of these resources. They provide students with vivid and realistic contact with life outside the school that could not otherwise be achieved. The appearance of resource person has a rejuvenating effect on the student because they are happy to see that person in the class, interacting with them, shaking hands, asking questions, and what have you. Student motivation is enhanced through the use of carefully selected resource persons and then the resources. Resource persons provide role models for students to emulate: the lawyers, the bank managers, the farmers, the MPs, the ministers, and what have you. There is a practical activity in lesson delivery because the lesson becomes very practical because the person who is in charge of that is there and telling you this, that. So it becomes practical, unlike telling them in an abstract form. So these are some of the importance of using some of these resources. Problems. Sometimes it becomes difficult to send the student to the workplace of the resource because of unwillingness of parents to allow their children to travel, especially far distance to the place. It can be very time consuming in terms of planning and organization of these trips. The invitation of a resource person can involve additional expenses for the teacher because at least you buy him or her some water, some whatever for TNT if he's coming from far place, or even at times you have to fuel his or her car because you don't expect him or her to come with his own fuel and go back. Traveling can increase the risk, accident, and what have you. Whether it is the resource person coming to the school or the school sending the student to the resource, they are all involving risk. So these are some of the challenges we encounter when we are using some of these resources. Any question? Any
Yes.
question? Yes.
Inviting a resource person to the classroom, is that cost for the teacher to bear?
Yes, he's coming to help you. That time you are supposed to teach and you invited the person. So you have to bear, if there's any cost, you have to bear. But if you ask permission from the head and the head said the entire school should benefit, then it is the head who will pay for such expenses because it's no longer your class, but the entire school. Right?
Okay, okay.
Okay. Any other? Okay, let's move on to look at the next slide on the unit 8 or slide 8. Okay. Lesson preparation or lesson plan. Can you see?
Yes, yes.
Basically, lesson plan can be divided into 4 sections, namely background information, that's the name of school, topic, dates, and all those that we know already. The objective, general and broad objective, and then specific objectives of the classroom or the classroom objective. Then presentation, given in phases or steps, objective 1, objective 2, 3. Then the closure and evaluation. So there's the 4 broad areas that we put a lesson plan into. The preparation for any effective teaching is very essential in our classroom situation. If you plan, you are done most of 80% of the work. When you are with the learners, it is just interaction between you and them. You know what to do as introduction, you know what to do as first objective, you know what to do as second, you know what to do as closure, you know the questions you ask and whatever. So planning is very, very important. If you don't plan, if you enter the classroom, you yourself, you see that you have not planned, you have not prepared for the class, but you are forced to teach. So we have to plan before we enter classroom. The teacher should therefore try to gain good mastery of the subject matter he or she is going to present. Under no circumstances should the teacher take it for granted that he has mastery over the subject matter and therefore he or she will not prepare, will not plan, put himself or herself together before he faces the learners. The following hints must be borne in mind. There is a need for the teacher to revise what he thinks he already knows so as to refresh his or her memory and ensure accuracy during the delivery. Because when you are giving false information to your learners and they use technology and they realize that you gave them wrong information, they'll come back and they're attacking you. So make sure that, you put yourself together, you prepare. You find other information from other technological tools to make you well equipped so that you can stand for any question that they will ask you, or you can give accurate information to your learners. In addition to his own material, the teacher must read the textbooks of his or her students and gather other information from the textbooks that the students are using aside yours. After the teacher has satisfied himself or herself that he or she has mastered his subject matter, he then can begin to plan the lesson, which comes first, which comes second, and then you put your thoughts together for delivery. Component of the lesson plan. The topic is there, and we know what constitutes the topic. The objective is there, we know what constitutes the objective. In the delivery of the lesson, always there is introduction, where you find out what learners know about the topic, and then you start building from there. Then the presentation from one stage to another, to the closure and evaluation of the lesson. In course of the teaching, at least you have to make good use of teaching and learning material or resources where to help you, the teacher, to teach and to help the learners to learn. So you don't just prepare it and put it down. At times, people will prepare it, but they don't specify where they will use it. So they will finish teaching before they realize that they are having the teaching and learning material to help them, especially when you are supervising them for teaching practice and what have you. So indicate where you use the resources, and when you get there, because you have prepared, you know exactly what to do at that point in time. Then closure, every lesson, you must close the lesson. Today we learn A, B, C, D. Tomorrow we will continue from here. You let them know where you continue from so that they'll also be reading around. Or, yes, today, what did you learn? We learned A, B, C, D. We learned this, we learned that. As a closure, then you find out, you let them know what they'll be doing next time when you meet them. Then you now give them their exercise or whatever. So we have the reference materials and all those things, remarks after the lesson has been successfully taught. You indicate in the syllabus. You can't plan your lesson without referencing to the syllabus or the curriculum that you are calling it now. A syllabus is a series of selected and related topics and activities that are designed by teachers, department heads, and meant to be covered over a period of time. Example, 1 term or 1 year or 2 terms or whatever. In developing the syllabus, efforts should be made to teach from known to unknown, simple to complex, general to specific, concrete to abstract, and what have you. Then, from the use of the syllabus, you now prepare your scheme of work, which is the plan which ensures that the content of the syllabus provided for a certain period of, say, a semester or a term is taught within that specific period. You know what to teach and what not to teach at what point in time. Because if you don't plan your scheme, you may plan too many topics in the term and you can't cover. Or you may plan too limited topics and you finish and you still have enough weeks to cover. So we take so many things into consideration before you plan your scheme. You take the timetable to know the number of times you have it. You take the syllabus to know the various topics, whether the topic can cover 2-3 weeks or you can use 1 week to cover. You consider the holidays in that particular term, the environment or the community where the school is situated, their activities, whether there will be a festival or there will be a big funeral, it's a marketplace, it's a Muslim community where Fridays. I mean, you take so many things into consideration before you plan your scheme so that you work within that specific period. And we all know that when we resume school, that first week, proper teaching and learning does not take place. So if you plan serious lesson for that first week, you may not be able to handle those topics effectively. And we know the last 2 weeks, the second to last week is revision and the last week is what? Exam. So those 2 weeks, you don't plan any teaching activities there. So if you are doing the teaching, the first, those 3 weeks are gone. So you plan your lesson within the other weeks and you take other things into consideration as well, depending on the term you are teaching or you are planning that your scheme and what have you. So that's that, and we know the format, the weekending. If it is weekending, you are using Friday, another Friday, another Friday. If it is week beginning, you are using Monday, another Monday, to cover the weeks that you are to teach in that particular term or semester or whatever. And you know what topic you teach. Maybe the topic, you can teach it for 3 weeks or for 4 weeks, depending on the sub-topics that major topic is having, and where you get your resources from, your teaching and learning materials, your reference materials. You make sure you put all of them together. Then from there, the scheme of work, you can now plan your lesson or your learner plan as you say it now. So these are the things we are doing, and we are just revising. Any question? Then we move to the last one for the day. Any question?
No questions, sir.
Okay, we'll finish with the last short one. Then we'll call it a day. Next week, we'll only see the learner plan. And then that will be the end of the period. Yes, teaching to cater for talented learners' diversity. In social studies, there are differences among students regarding academically talented teaching of the child of the poor. In the classroom, they are not the same. We talk of principles of teaching, and we talk of individual differences. Even twins, we say they are not the same. They all have their individual unique characteristics different from one another, even though they came from the same parent, the same time, or the same womb, the same time. They still have their individual unique characteristics. So they have their different academic talents and capabilities. And the social studies teacher need to identify the various categories of learners in his or her class. If you don't know them, you can't cater for them properly. You need to know your learners, so you know who is who, so that you can cater for them when you are with them, teaching them. Teaching the academically talented. Avoid holding talented pupils back. The question Madam asks, that can you jump a student when he is academically good? And I say it depends. If he has knowledge about almost all the things that you are teaching them in that class, there's no need holding him. You have to let him move ahead. Then he's not having knowledge about all of them, but an area. Then in the same classroom, you give him or her difficult tasks to perform, whilst you give simple tasks to the other poor achievers or average achievers to also handle. You don't give them the same tasks because he is above or she is above that task that you have given them. So you give them different tasks where his own or her own will be difficult than the ones that the other colleagues are handling. Hold talented pupils to high standard. Make them think rigorously and refuse slipshod work or slipshod thinking. Because they think they know anything they say, you accept. Let them think and come out with correct or appropriate responses, and make sure that their responses or their work are indeed accurate and acceptable. Don't just know that they are good, so anything that comes from them is good. No, make sure that the information or what they submitted is appropriate for the question or what have you. Force talented pupils to learn to discipline themselves and their thinking. If they don't discipline themselves, they may think they know, but at the end they may commit blunder. So they should discipline themselves and make sure that they learn. Even though they think they know, they must still continue to learn and do the right thing. Give talented people the opportunity to learn the academic skills and insist that they do so. The thinking skills, the writing skills, the communication skills, and all those skills that you can think of, the interpretation and all those, let them learn those things. Give talented people considerable responsibility for their own direction. Make sure that you give them a lot of difficult tasks that will put them on their toes to learn. Let them evaluate their own learning. Use teacher-pupil planning to help them plan and then assess their own learning and making sure that they are progressing, even though they are talented. Give talented pupils challenging but interesting work to do. Don't hold them back, as we mentioned. Encourage talented pupils to dig into things, find out more about the issue. They don't just limit it on the surface. They should go deep to find out more about the issue. Please encourage them to go to the original source of the information so that they can have the original information and it will stick, unlike having the surface information or factual information which may not help them. Use a variety of materials, e.g. original sources, adult material, college textbook, and other books that will help them to put them on their toes. Let them use those materials. Don't let them use the materials that are below them. Give talented people enough problem-solving, inquiry, and open-ended assignments so that they can put their thoughts together by looking for the information for themselves and making sure they own their own learning. Don't be providing them with the information because you have to push them to look for information for themselves because they are talented individuals. Handling the poor achievers in the classroom. We always teach them using the concrete materials rather than teaching them the abstract content. So in the poor achievers, when you know them, you always make sure that you go at their pace using the concrete materials without teaching them things in the abstract nature. Use activities in which people work with things rather than just with words. Let them manipulate the objects and making sure they understand whatever you are teaching them. Take it easy. A slower pace may make all the difference. Don't rush when you are teaching the poor achievers, and don't give them too much information one at a time. And by so doing, they'll be picking up slowly. Try to build up the pupils' confidence in themselves. Encourage, praise, and help them whenever they do something small and it is good. Encourage them, give them a shine for them, do this. By so doing, you are building their confidence level and they'll be able to come out with questions. And when you ask questions too, they will try to respond to you. Try to integrate the subject matter and relate it to the people's life. Make it a real life situation kind of teaching so that they'll put themselves in the person's shoe and then be imagining and coming out with their responses. You should emphasize thinking skills when you are handling these poor achievers. Diagnose and find out their problem. And when you're able to know their problem, it is then that you can help them to overcome their problem. Then avoid shortcuts. Follow all the processes to the end so that they'll be able to understand. Because you know, don't think they also know. So, no. And this, particularly the math teachers, they will no, take them through all the processes to the end so that they will understand whatever you are teaching them. Don't cut some of the formulas and then at the end, this is the response, the answer. No, take them through all the processes to the end so that when they are following and they are learning, they will be picking up. Be sure your assignment and explanations are simple and clear to their understanding. Keep after poor achievers to keep them working well. Monitor them so that they make sure that you make sure that they are doing well. Use simple, easy, but adult materials in teaching them. Even though they are the poor achievers, don't use child materials in teaching. Use adult material which are simple and easy to handle them. Use dramatization, pictures, illustration, random boards, graphs, charts, and whatever to handle these learners when you are with them, because we say you should use some of these concrete things in the teaching of these poor achievers. Encourage people to help and learn from one another. So you can put them into groups depending on the type of group you want to form, whether you put both the achievers and the poor together, or you separate them and give them separate tasks. Depending on what you want to achieve, you put them into groups for them to learn from one another. Keep activities relatively short so that it will not be too long and they will be discouraged to accomplish the task. Provide for considerable supervised study. When you give them the task, make sure you supervise them to do the work, and when they submit, you give them the feedback promptly so that they will know whether they are progressing or not. Provide for group or committee work. So as you said, they can learn from one another, so make sure that you always put them into groups, and then they will learn from one another to improve upon themselves. Teaching achievers in heterogeneous class. Use activities which are not reading oriented so that poor readers will not be continually in competition with good readers. So when you are teaching these people in the same class, the good and then the talented, make sure that you use activities that are not reading, whereby they will also be able to participate. Use committee and group work in which the academically less talented are given tasks in accordance with their abilities to perform. And then you give the talented ones to the ones that the ability will help them to perform. Use many aids, illustrations, and visuals so that the less academically able can see the points you are driving at. Use a variety of reading. Let less able pupils read the short ones, the easy materials, and then the difficult ones, you let the high achievers read that. The same way, when you ask questions, you direct the question, the simple ones to the poor achievers, and then the difficult ones to the high achievers, and by so doing, you are taking care of all of them. So these are the things we need to balance so far as teaching these children are concerned. Teaching children of the poor, respect the pupils. No matter their situation, the teacher, you should still respect them. Pay greater attention to motivation, and then fight anti-intellectualism by showing pupils that the subject matter is important for them to learn. So make sure that you motivate them to learn the information. Be sure the course content has meaning to the people and relate to their lives and their interests. Give people opportunities to succeed. Praise them when they do well, but avoid using harsh words, insulting them. No, just encourage them to learn by praising them, shine for them, come for toffee and all those things. Be firm, be strict, and be definite, but not harsh on these learners. Use laboratory techniques because the people are physically oriented. They enjoy working on concrete projects. That's the laboratory techniques. Make sure you let them use the concrete things to manipulate. Begin at pupils level, and then you move towards the difficult or the abstract ones that they have to think small before they will use. Use simple language in the classroom so that when you give instruction, they'll be able to understand and respond to it. Classroom management techniques. Classroom management relate with effective control and efficient use of the available resources in the classroom in order to bring about learning. An effective classroom management involves what the teacher does in the classroom to make it possible for every pupil to benefit from the teaching and learning interaction. All strategies that the teacher use to ensure conducive atmosphere for teaching and learning constitute classroom management. The seating arrangements and all those things, your appearance, your facial appearance, everything constitute part of the classroom management. How you respond to student questions and how you ask them questions, and all of them constitute classroom management because you are in charge of the class. So whatever you do to make the atmosphere lively for teaching and learning to take place is your responsibility. With the provision of a healthy condition under which classroom activities are carried out, is your duty to make sure that the classroom condition is healthy and lively for teaching and learning to take place. The planning of the curriculum or classroom activities, organizing procedures and resources, maintaining discipline, monitoring the pupils' progress, and all those things that will happen in the classroom and how you help to overcome them constitute classroom management, as we are doing already. Factors which enhance good classroom management. The teacher's behavior. Your behavior will enhance classroom management depending on how you behave with your learners in the classroom. Teacher must plan his lesson effectively by organizing procedures and resources like teaching and learning materials, including good delivery of his or her lesson. Teaching and learning materials like textbook, exercise book, pencil, whatever, must be adequately supplied to your learners when you are supplying them so that everybody will be able to use the resources in the teaching and learning process. Classroom space must be such that it's large for easy working and supervising them. There should be enough ventilation in the classroom so that the learners will feel comfortable during the teaching and learning interaction. Questions should be effectively used as a way of delivering your lesson to promote teacher-learner interaction and ensure that the learners are actively involved in the teaching and learning process. Encourage class participation when taking decision. Don't take decision and impose it on them. Let them be part of the decision making. And once they are part of the decision making, its implementation will not be difficult for you because they set the rules or they were part of what the decision of that particular information. Cater for the needs of individual differences and group activities. Marking and discussing of class exercises on time so that you can give it to them, the feedback to help them to identify their strengths and their weaknesses. Encouraging healthy competition among these learners and helping them to assess themselves whether they are progressing or not. It's not you, the teacher alone, who assess them. Let their colleagues assess them. Let them assess their own learning as they progress. Dressing neatly as a teacher, using acceptable language, and generally acting as a role model is part of a good classroom management. So your dressing counts a lot. Your language that you use on your learners counts a lot, and you serve as a role model. So always make sure that whatever you are doing, the learners are picking from you. Changing the nature of the sitting arrangement depending on the topic and then the class. Don't let them sit at one place throughout the term. Change their sitting arrangements, change their sitting places because they are all part of the class. So let them interact among themselves so far as the classroom management is concerned. Being firm and fair in the use of rewards and punishment. Be fair. When you want to punish, you punish instantly. Don't defer the punishment. What you did the other day, that's why I'm punishing you today. No, punish him or her instantly. So I know that what he did was why he was being punished. Don't refer or defer the punishment to later time. Use reward fairly and use punishment also fairly. And assign them responsibilities to take. Don't always impose it on them. Let them select their own class captain or whatever. let them come out with their own whatever that you want them to do, and then they'll be doing it, and you'll be supervising them. So this is the end of Unit 9, so far as the classroom management is concerned, and this will be the end of today's interaction. And next week, we'll only see the learner plan for some few minutes, and that will be the end for the semester. Any question?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Sir, please, from the discussion, we have realized that in the classroom mix up with talented and
yes, and the poor.
Yes, and the poor.
Yes.
You have to design your teaching in such a way that you give the high achievers more a bit difficult questions,
Yes.
and then
Yes, to meet their intellectual abilities.
yes, and then,
And then the achievers to you come down to their
yes.
level. Yes.
Okay, so my question is,
Yes.
then is it not better we do ability grouping, like the high achievers, we put them in a particular class, and then the low average ones will be in different class?
We said that we should encourage them to learn from one another. So in the classroom, the same classroom with the talented and the poor, it depends on what you want to them to achieve when putting them into groups. You can mix the poor and the talented together, and they'll be learning from the talented. You can separate them, give talented difficult tasks, give the low achievers the simple tasks, depending on what you want to achieve. They are all in the same class. It is your duty to cater for all of them. So if you identify them, that's why I said we should know your learners. If you know them, always you know how to handle them, especially when you are grouping them, whether you want the ability group or you want the mixture of the two or the three or whatever group you have identified.
Okay, say. But in my school, the head decided that we group the high achievers in one class because the low average ones are, drawing them back. So now we have separated the poor or the low average students in one class, that is B class, and then the high achievers in A class.
And you are teaching them the same syllabus, the same topics.
Yes, sir.
But the high achievers, they are learning difficult tasks, and then the low achievers, they are learning simple tasks in the same topic area.
We are doing it together.
But they are in different classrooms.
Whatever we teaches the A's is the same thing that we do in the B's.
But the content,
because they are not even together, when you go to the B, it's always very difficult for you, the teachers. So you have to always do your teachings or using lecture method, because most of them will not be able to contribute.
So it's better you put all of them together in the same class. And as we have discussed, okay, when you ask difficult question, you know who to direct the question to. If you ask simple question, you know who to direct the question to. When you are putting them into groups, you know whether you are mixing the talent and then the poor, or you are separating the poor from the talent and giving them different tasks. So it depends on how you handle it in the classroom. But separating them entirely, well, and the same teacher will move from here to here. It's the same thing that you do in the same, when they are all in the same classroom. So, well, it depends. It happens. So when you get to some of the stream A, B, C, D, and they group them according to their ability. So it depends. So let's take it like that and move on and see how they will be coping.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other? Okay. If no other, it's exactly 2 o'clock. So next week, we will look at the learner plan that we have been doing. So you will teach me what we have been doing so far as the old learner plan and the new learner plan is concerned. And for examination sake, you are at liberty to use any of the learner plan when questions come on the learner plan. Okay, so see you. Have a nice day.
You too. Same to you, sir.
Oh,
Thank
Lydia,
you.
your hand is up. Lydia, your hand is up. Let's hear you.
Sorry, sir. It
Oh,
was the
okay,
first
okay.
one that.
Okay, that's okay. You bye-bye.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.